Girl resurrects. Her words make scientists wonder if reincarnation is real. At first, the worried parents couldn't believe their luck. Against all odds, her daughter was still alive. It seemed like nothing too serious had happened and their little girl was all right. But then, some strange things started happening. They couldn't make sense of what their daughter was saying. Maybe she had suffered some sort of brain damage? But then, the experts came over to interpret the girl's words, and their conclusions were as mind-blowing as they were uncanny. Many people across the globe believe in reincarnation, or, in other words, that when someone passes away, they start living again on the same earth, but in a different body. Religions like Buddhism and Hinduism share this belief, and some non-religious people believe in it too. However, there are a few reasons why one may be skeptical about what happens after one's decease. Most people who believe in reincarnation rarely can offer scientific proof for it. For the most part, it's a belief that makes sense within some religions, but it seems to be something difficult to prove scientifically. However, today we're talking about one story that some scientists think is an argument to support the belief in reincarnation. It's the story of a girl named Dorothy Eade. Dorothy Eade was born in London in 1904. At 3 years of age, she suffered an accident. She tripped down the stairs of her parents' house and lost consciousness for a few days. When the family's doctor saw her, he gave the heartbroken parents a grim verdict: the girl was already clinically deceased. He advised them to start arranging her funeral and gave them his condolences. However, Dorothy came back to her senses just the next day. She couldn't talk yet, and she seemed to be in a deep state of confusion, but her bodily functions seemed to be working normally. At first, her parents couldn't believe it. Then, all they could do was shedding tears of joy. It was almost miraculous. Little did they know that Dorothy was about to shock them with something even more outlandish. Then, they thought about filing a lawsuit against the doctor. Had they listened to him, they would have buried their daughter alive. But they decided to forget about everything else and focus on Dorothy's recovery. Slowly, the little girl started feeling better, and she began talking again. And that's when her parents started noticing some strange patterns that seemed unexplainable. Dorothy seemed to speak with a strange accent since she had recovered her senses. It sounded foreign, but it didn't remind any of those who heard it of any country or language in particular. Also, the girl started talking about a place she had seen in her dreams. She spoke of a big, beautiful garden, with currents of water flowing among palm trees and bees flying around. She said that was her home, and kept asking her parents to take her back there. "Honey, this is your home." That was just a dream, her parents told her. But Dorothy would get very upset every time she heard this. "No, no. That was my home. I want to go back," she cried. The parents didn't know what to do. Maybe she had suffered some kind of brain damage after her accident? But their biggest shock came after they went with Dorothy to an Egyptian exhibit in London's British Museum. Among the items in the exhibit, there was a photograph of the Temple of Seti, who was the father of Ramses the Great. When she saw the picture, Dorothy instantly ran next to it and started saying, "There it is. That's my home," while pointing at it. However, there seemed to be something wrong. But where are the gardens? Where are all the trees? Dorothy asked her parents. And that was only the start of a bewildering chain of events. While still at the exhibit, Dorothy started kissing the feet of the emperor's statues, saying that those were her people and asking to be left alone with them. Understandably, at first, her parents thought that those were only the fruits of a wild imagination. But soon enough, more things happened that made them think twice and start considering a baffling possibility. Even though they were a bit worried about Dorothy's outlandish claims, her parents were happy that her child had such a passion for knowledge of ancient cultures. They decided to take her more often to the exhibit. They also introduced her to an old scholar who started teaching her the meanings of hieroglyphics. The scholar was shocked at how fast Dorothy seemed to pick up on the old sign language. In a matter of days, she could already read complex texts from thousands of years ago. Dorothy's explanation for it was even more bewildering. She said she wasn't learning anything new, just remembering her original language. That's why she was able to learn in a few days what often takes scholars years. And that wasn't the end of it. Dorothy continued to study ancient Egyptian culture during all her childhood and teenage years. By the time she was 15, she was more knowledgeable about it than most experienced scholars. It got to a point where researchers from London's universities were coming to her, a girl who hadn't even turned 18 yet, when they were having trouble interpreting some ancient Egyptian text. And that wasn't all. She even started guiding archaeologists, telling them where some ancient buildings and monuments used to be and informing them beforehand about what they would find in excavations. Everyone was amazed at her knowledge. It was almost like she was an ancient Egyptian who traveled in time to 20th century London. But could that be possible? For the whole time, Dorothy kept claiming that she was the reincarnation of Bentreshit, a priestess who lived during the reign of Emperor Seti, 1290 BC, 1279 BC. According to her story, she was a consecrated virgin in the temple of Kam el-Sultan. That was the temple that she called her home when she was just 3 years old. Over the next years, she became Seti's secret lover and passed away as a punishment from the gods for her sins. Can that be true? We may never know for sure. But if it's not, how can we explain Dorothy's extensive and precocious knowledge of life and culture in ancient Egypt? Dorothy grew up to be one of the most famous and respected Egyptologists in history. She married an Egyptian man and moved to Egypt, where she kept researching the ancient culture which she claimed her own for the rest of her life.